So with that, I'm going to briefly introduce our first wonderful speaker, Nirva, and then we'll let her talk more about herself and her work. Nirva Fereshetian is a principal and the CIO at CBT Architects, where she leads the digital design practice group and is responsible for aligning business technology strategy to meet primary business objectives. Nirva, thanks so much for being with us today, and we look forward to learning from your insights.
Well, thank you, Nikna. Really excited to be part of this, and thank you for the invite. I'm going to, the screen is shared, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the topic of implementing AEC technologies is really an interesting and a challenging one. We have I have a small summary of what I'm going to cover since it's only 15 minutes. I'm going to cover our organizational structure in terms of technology, implementation and adoption, a little bit about our tool ecosystem, then some strategies of how do we decide different implementations processes depending on the scenario, and lastly, some opportunities and challenges. So in the organizational structure, I have tried to stay away from, for the past several years, for the term IT, and we call ourselves visual practice. We want to align ourselves with the business as a practice unit, and inside that unit, we have business technology, design technology, computational design, learning and knowledge management, as we think that all of these technologies really need real collaboration in setting up events, doing trainings, setting up knowledge management locations. So, and the last thing, and which is a very, very important part of our ecosystem, is a group of tech allies we have as a cross-section of different projects, different roles, different design typologies, and they play a very important role. So moving along from that to our tool ecosystem, I think as it's known by everybody, our industry has had a dramatic increase in number of tools in the past decade. It used to be before people knew, 5 or 6, Revit, AutoCAD, a couple of different other things. Now we've passed that into a massive amount of tools that we use, and really the impact on keeping up with them, making sure the new features are there, having sessions where people are educated on the right ways of using this, so those become slightly more challenging than half a dozen tools. And moving forward, as we see in the new AI ecosystem, and that number is going to go really beyond manageable. I think a couple of weeks ago, I saw something, I know AEC+tech also puts in lists here and there, but last week I saw someone, I think it's called AEC Hub or something, where it was 700 and then became 900 tools. So really something to look forward to as far as manageability, testing, and implementation, definitely. So overall, though, I feel like the tool categories are essentially seen in separate buckets. One is an individual workflow. The second one is a team workflow. And the third one is an expert workflow. And I'm going to give examples of this in the next couple of slides. And the last one is an entire office workflow. It's a platform change. And that has become increasingly, we have moved from just one tool, or is it a rendering tool, or is it a plug-in, to really platform experimentation. And those are really difficult decisions to make. So for each of these categories, really there is different approaches of how the research is done, how the training is done, and how that evolves into becoming a standard tool office-wide. All the tools are evaluated on really a couple of things. Is it replacing an existing tool? Is it adding to a new tool added to the ecosystem? Will it create a new delivery method? Will it create a new service model? Is it solving a problem we have? Because sometimes we have all kinds of vendors approaching us, them telling us that we have a problem instead of the other way around. So, and then at the end of the day, it has to check one of these 4 boxes. Is it going to make us faster? Is it going to make us better quality-wise? Is it a cheaper alternative to what we have, or is it a new service? So starting from the individual workflows, the easiest example is the rendering references. Enscape has been our dominant tool for rendering, but when things like Twinmotion and other things come up, we really look at it in a way that what is this new tool doing that the previous one was not doing? And these are one of the easiest decisions to make because it's still in the individual ecosystem, barring the fact that these additional tools create different file structures, and it makes it really challenging for people to follow up on someone's work. There is an Enscape file or there's a Twinmotion file, and someone knows Enscape better and someone doesn't know Twinmotion. So we try to manage the workflow properly. So our current methodology for this one is that you can use Twinmotion if there's something specific that you cannot do in our existing Enscape ecosystem. And another example is Veras, which is an AI rendering plugin, which we currently use, and the images generated are samples of that. And for that, it is a plugin in Rhino and Revit, and it's a very much an individual preference and not impacting our overall ecosystem. So moving from that to team workflows. Things that come up like a product called Markup X that we cannot test individually. So essentially, it's a tool that makes it easier, whatever PDF editor, Bluebeam or otherwise, and Revit, where people mark up in the PDF editor and others have to pick up in Revit. So it's automatically, as you open the PDF editor and click, it automatically goes to the location of the Revit setup, so you save time. So in situations like this, it's not something our design technology group can test. It's something that we have to figure out, pick up a team and a project that is going to test and then move along from there. So the next example is really entire office workflows, which is platform-based things. And AVAIL being one of the examples of that, being a content management system, needs a complete office buy-in. Everyone's going to use it. You cannot say, hey, I'm going to render in this product or not, or in that tool. And it has to continuously be updated to keep up the content, really the things that the office is going to use, or remove outdated content, continuous education and learning and training. And these platform choices are very difficult to replace and revert. So these are major decisions. Once you've made some decision, it's not as easy as we're going to drop Enscape and pick up Twinmotion or any of those easier tools to implement. There's also, I had referred the fourth one as an expert workflow. It means just only a group of people are specifically directed to a group of people. And then one of the examples is UpCodes, which we have been working since 2018. And the platform, it started as with a plugin in Revit, and the goal was to run and check for code compliance. And we were really excited about it. But then over the years, it developed, that was dropped, and it developed into more of a especially lately, a Copilot ChatGPT type, as you can see on the right side, code inquiry. And we're very excited and happy to use it effectively in the office. One, our code experts use it, but also, yeah, it's a very quick learning curve for our young architects to learn the code compliance and really yeah, this answers a lot of their questions before they go and ask our office experts. So it also saves time for our office experts to not be training the younger staff from 0 to 60, and then afterwards just pick up afterwards for their specific questions. So the last one that I gave the example is that is it giving a new delivery and a new service, and that those are these two, OneClick LCA and Climate Studio, have been in the past year more of a specifically delivering a different thing that we would never did before. So so both of them are really very interesting parts of our design process now, and we do let our clients know these are service models that we are currently providing that really helps the design process, specifically in the beginning. So what are the implementation strategies and workflows? I mean, there's two ways it starts. Design technology team is really we can say 70 to 30%. 70% of our stuff comes in this for this team. Either the team is solving a problem or automating something, or a vendor has approached us. So the first step is that they research and test, and then move it to a pilot project and a team. And in that scenario, it's very critical that we pick the right team, the right time as far as a project situation, and also the right individuals. I mentioned in the first slide that we have a lot of technology allies spread in different roles. So we always kind of depend on them to move in this second phase. And so the third phase is a decision whether it is going to be part of our ecosystem or not. And if it is, then training sessions are designed with a trainer and a knowledge manager that we have in our team, and workflows are set up to appropriately start the adoption. The other 30% comes from our tech allies, as they are suggesting a tool that they've seen or have used before. And again, they are bringing that to us, and pretty much cover the same type of steps that I said before, but really working with the person who's actually bringing that idea, as they think it's either going to check all of those boxes, either it's something enhancing our quality or speed, or a different expense and a different ROI on our products. So what does this bring? Really, there are real exciting opportunities. We've been a very big advocate of trying to work with a lot of startups, as well as companies that are not startups like Autodesk with new products. And I think it's extremely interesting times in our industry, and there is so many good ideas and great experiences that we're having with a slew of products I am mentioning on the screen. However, that also brings a lot of challenges. There is a real tool fatigue, and we've not even embarked on that 900. Maybe out of the 900, we've tested about 24, but there is definitely tool fatigue. And a lot of them have some overlap of features. So it's very hard to throw this on people without actually determining when to use it, how to use it, what makes it different from the other thing we tested. And really, speed of change and continuous on-demand training. I always feel like technology is dominating their learning time, while they're really architects, interior designers, and urban designers who need to learn their profession, who need to follow their professional growth as well. So I always think that technology is kind of infringing for that time, that so valuable time that there is not many of. And then the cost, and I don't mean the cost of the actual tools, but the actual cost of our time. And that, to me, if the cost of a product is X, usually we spend about 5 times that to go through the cycle of testing and making a decision whether to use it or not, or moving into our workflow and ecosystem. And lastly, the risk of using a tool that will not be around. And it's not just startups. I mean, we've learned for the startups to research and check how they're backed up and what kind of funding they have and all of that. But it's also bigger companies. Like an example is Autodesk FormIt. We've been looking to that product to be used for a number of years, at least 5 or 6 years. And about in early 2023, we thought that it would be a good alternative in our Revit workflow and Revit ecosystem, and somehow a little bit of an alternative for SketchUp users that were moving in that Revit direction. So on March 6th, I got an email from Autodesk saying they're stopping development in April of 2024, not even a month notice. So these are the real challenges of trying to now re-explain to everybody who were starting to use this tool. Granted that this is not a big part of the ecosystem. It's not just it's not like flipping Revit. But still, it is yet another set of efforts to tell them that the one that we explained a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago is going to be changed. So at the end, this is a very people-centric and highly collaborative industry. And that collaboration, more than ever, needs to be extending beyond our firms. 900 tools is not something any firm can handle. So we really need to work together and to help our industry to move forward, especially in the AI and automation age. And there's a lot of efforts I see everywhere in that, having that intent, and that it looks very promising and exciting. So tools are here today and are not here tomorrow. Properly designed workflows are very critical for office efficiencies. And lastly, people. People is the biggest factor of all of this. They make the tools shine. The tools were never the reason why people design or design well or produce content well. You have to put the right tool in the hands of the right people. So even in the push button AI promise that we're supposed to push buttons and everything is going to be automatically generated, we still need these people. And in our experiments that I've shown, we still need our people to check the outcomes. We still need our people to create the synthetic data that actually is not there. And we still need skill sets. Like now, prompt engineers are the skill set that we need. So people, technology does not work without people. So I think that I don't know whether I made my time or not, but that's all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nirva. Extremely insightful and wonderful presentation. Thanks for sharing all this like great knowledge and experiences with us. So I'll have a couple of questions, but I'll ask them at the end. So now with that, I'm going to introduce Bill, our next wonderful speaker. Bill Carney is DLR Group's design technology leader, and his focus is global to work with the integrated design leadership to establish and execute strategies that will help enhance DLR's BIM and digital design technology teams to ensure the work delivered by the team is done on the cutting edge of AEC standards and practices. Thanks so much, Bill, for joining us today. And please feel free to share your screen. Okay, perfect. We can see it right here.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Still seeing screen while it's shifted over?
Yes, we can see your screen now.
All right. Well, my presentation's a little more theoretical. And there's a lot of good stuff. Like I'm struggling not to just dive in and talk about what we just saw. So thank you. I'm Bill Carney. If you search me, there's a lot of stuff under Bill or William, and I figured I'd just address it right off the bat. So my name is William on my driver's license. The amount of after-hours work that I've had to do where I've not been let into a building, I just leave William on everything formal. So I do go by Bill. I'm excited to talk to you about my role at DLR Group and implementing innovative technology. And somewhere in here, I'll talk about AI a little bit. So I lead our design technology team, as well as set our strategy for how we use tools to design buildings across all of our disciplines. The design technology team, I break it up into digital practice, digital design, digital services, and R&D. And what that means is digital practice is the group that is focused on today. I say it's our now, they're, BIM management, GIS management for planning. It's driving up efficiencies in our projects and driving up the adoption of tools and driving up the increase of automation. Our digital design group is the deep collection of technical experts. They build scalable enterprise tools and solve complex design problems with their superpowers, which are things like programming, Unreal Engine development, GIS development, data science. And then our digital services is largely our reality capture team. But aspirationally, we want to capture the digital exhaust of the tools we use in our practice and use them to build services and tools for our clients, so services beyond the building. And then our R&D, we look at the things that are going to disrupt our tech ecosystem across the firm and see how these things can fit into the tomorrow of what we're trying to do. So it's the now, new, next in services. I did feel it was appropriate throwing this slide in. I show this a lot. I call it the buckets of design technology. These are the broad categories of innovative technology that I get to shepherd its way into DLR Group. So with that, I want to start by introducing some concepts that are basically the strategy of how I implement technology, and I'll tie them in throughout an actual story. So first, planting seeds and dangling carrots. It's where you throw a ton of ideas out. The ideas are seeds. When a seed grows, you nurture it, you help it grow. If a seed's a weed, you may need to pull that, but that's a phrase for a whole nother presentation. And then the dangling carrots part, that's where you dangle a carrot in front of a horse to lead it to water. People don't love change. That's just a reality. And so what you need to do is present something that they want to get them to change. So that something can be the way that you message something. It can be the story of a value. You're doing something for them, or just flat out, it's a way that you prioritize things. So while I was working at Leidos, we were working to develop the easy button for Project Startup Portal. And the mantra I started then and use today is input once and populate many. When I start a project in an accounting system, and if I type that project's address or the size, I should never type that again. People are great at many things, but typing the same thing over and over again is not one of those. So my goal with data is to streamline the inputs of it to increase efficiency and quality. And then if we do that, we can start to use our data for machine learning more easily because all of the extra information starts to become connected and related. An hour to save a week. I've found that designers don't love BIM execution planning meetings. The purpose of those meetings is to plan out what you need to do to execute a project. They should just be execution meetings or project planning meetings. But I've shifted to start using this phrase, and I point my team to find things that save full weeks of time. And in our industry, we have tons of them. So if we sit down and plan out a project, we can identify what to use at the right time because it's project centric. And this meeting, it's as much about saving time as it is reinforcing what you want people to use as far as tech wise goes. Automate yourself out of a job. a personal goal of mine is to automate myself out of a job. I've yet to do it, and I keep piling stuff on. For our BIM team, the Digital Practice Group, we have a loose goal to automate 20% of our jobs year over year. What this is, as far as the strategy goes, is there are so many tedious tasks that keep us from growing so we can focus on things that really matter, and they're just doing the tasks. So by automating those tasks off our plate, we can focus on the bigger picture and then also grow the skills that we needed by coding away our jobs. Hurdles and turtles. This one I actually picked up at my first job in San Diego, but they're the things that trip you up and slow you down. So you need to be able to identify these things, period. Like that, you have to know where these things are and find them, and avoiding them is the key to really anything. These are things that we build tools to get over or automate away. And you could say potholes or speed bumps is just another way of thinking of this. And then the last phrase that I'll put in is assume no one cares. I talk a lot about the mental approach to technology. In my role, in many ways, I represent change. People hate change. I represent BIM. People hate BIM. To keep going and get people to really change, I assume that no one cares about anything that I'm going to say. And then my mission is to eventually get them there where they actually care. So I have to shell myself up mentally to be able to handle the long road ahead and really embrace the being on an island. So with that, I'm going to tell a story, mostly coherent, somewhere in here about implementing technology, some innovative AI, all the things. I'm going to talk about PowerPoint. Sorry, I do like bad jokes. So, but in reality, this is PowerPoint design ideas. If you're not familiar, what it is you can put a picture, you can put some text, and then on the side, you get a few ideas. And when you click it, it auto completes your slide. It's the best analogy for how I want to space program. So if I know what goes in a room, I should be able to place a few things and then suddenly get a lot of ideas of what that room could be, and then just click on it and auto complete the slide. I mean, the room layout. So this is the thing that I've been aspirationally working on for a few years and what I want to talk about today. So a few years ago, through our R&D studio, we dove deep into our BIM data. So what we did is we brought on a data scientist, and to see if we could look at this information. BIM has really wonderful data inside, and it can be looked at in many ways to understand your project. So we looked at all the data in like a couple hundred projects at the time to see if we could read our data. Could we spot types of rooms? And can we spot relations between things inside of the rooms? And it turned out we could, and pretty easily. And so what you're seeing are some of the graphs as we were looking for the patterns of different rooms inside of our projects. So the data science term that is basically the way that like dating sites work is called K nearest neighbors. So you can plot out a bunch of points and then look at for the most similar points around a single point. When we started our exploration on our own data, we hired Keith McCormick, who's a data scientist with Pandata, and he's also a fellow LinkedIn Learning content author. He pointed me to KNNs and gave me this great analogy around a wine of the month club. So a wine of the month club, they'll give you this seemingly arbitrary survey, and it'll be like, hey, do you like potato chips? Do you like chocolate? Do you like watermelon? And each of those things means something of like savory, sweet, bitter, or whatever. All of those things are related to the main features of a wine. So while what they'll do is look for all the wine around it and give your neighborhood of wine types that you'll probably like based on your questions. And then you receive a box and you say, wow, I'd never think of these things. But data science knew you would like them because you like these other things. Now, my concern with a K nearest neighbors thing is that if I place a room, I don't want to get the most similar pictures. If I extract out all the layouts of our projects and I look for the neighborhood, I'm probably going to get a ton of nearly identical room layouts. This works for autocomplete, but not for my PowerPoint design ideas aspiration. So an important thing in implementing new ideas is having ways of conveying them. When it comes to what I'm talking about right now with this design ideas things, I always talk about cladograms. If you're not familiar with the term, it's used heavily in understanding evolution. So there's Darwin's tree of life, where one species leads to another. There's also the phrase with humans of the missing link. What that phrase comes from is, if I don't know all of the species that ever existed, how do I know that the one thing turned into the other thing? So you really can't. So what the cladogram did is, it's just a way of grouping features and things. And so you can take one axis and look at features, and then the other is a way to group similar things together. Making my point, if I use the cladogram, I could look for a pill-shaped marine carnivore with a dorsal fin and flippers. And then what I'd get is a shark, which is a fish, and an ichthyosaur, which is a marine reptile, and a dolphin, which is an aquatic mammal. Similar, but very different. So what I would like to have is, maybe when I start to place something, I have an autocomplete option first, which is the likely answer, but then I get something that's closely related, but different. Or maybe, something that's really different, or maybe even the missing link, like completely different, or it can tell me things that I might have missed, like a trash can in a file cabinet. So I want to display these design ideas and then click and complete my work. But the ideas have to be similar but different enough that I can get the variation of fish, reptile, and mammal. So I've got this long-term vision that I can clearly convey, lots of mantras around it. I'm not done implementing this vision, but what I'm going to keep talking about now is kind of how we're getting there as a design technology team at DLR Group. So when I joined in 2019 at DLR Group, I was told on day one, hey, you're also going to be one of the R&D studio leaders. So I was like, cool, that's exciting. The large part of that role for me is aligning all of our efforts into the broader goals of design technology. So these are the slides that I put together in 2020 to show all of these big projects that we had going on. So we were building a data warehouse. We had 3 different planning tools that our leadership had lumped together as one project because it was just labeled a planning tool. And then we were also had this initiative for post-occupancy evaluation, and we're hiring a data scientist. So this slide here, what I did is put together a slide to try to explain what it all was and how it fit into this bigger aspirational vision. And what it was a tool to find out where the project should go, a tool to figure out what should go inside of the building, another one to figure out what should go inside of the rooms inside of the building, and then a way for us to store all of that information, another way for us to grade out whether the project's good or bad, and then how AI could come in and make suggestions in the future to reuse the information that we already used. So once I had buy-in, our graphics team actually came up with this. And what's cool is that I've found over the years, they made an image basically in the way that I work. I break up big aspirations into a now, new, next, or a good, better, best, or in this case, today, tomorrow, future. And so what it does is make something that I can talk about. I can talk about the aspiration, and then people can start to see ideas. And that's me planting seeds where I'm peppering in these different ideas that relate to this concept, and that people can start to grow their own ideas and contribute to it. So, hurdles and turtles. The next year going on, I've got this vision. We've started doing things. I work on parallel tracks. And so I do research on the things that I know will bring the challenges, the hurdles and turtles. So the diagram here is the diagram we put together in 2021 to talk about the things that we were actually doing. So a lot of these things were the dangling of carrots, where we started building a calculator that would let us calculate out what would be inside of a building. And that lets us tag data in a consistent way. So we're able to really start to give things to the designers that they need and research things that are going to trip us up to have better ways of using AI. And so more on that, there's a big concept with AI of speed versus accuracy. Speed being deep learning, accuracy being like traditional machine learning. And so if I gave all of our data for deep learning, we could let the computer train on it, and then it would start to spot patterns and it would tell us something. But a lot of times it's very wrong. And we found, you can kind of see in the orange here, all of this stuff was like information that wasn't even filled out in our projects. And so what we started to do is understand where our big challenges are. We saw that we abbreviate a lot of stuff. So like toilet, we would say is TLT. Hall, or might be named very differently, like a hall versus a corridor, or a desk or a workstation. They're similar, but they're named totally differently. And then we have the creative rooms. Like I've got a conference room in our Minneapolis office that's called the Minnetonka room. It's a conference room, but it's got a name. So when we look at things, and this is fairly recent data science work for us, where we're looking at groupings of a room, all of the things inside of it. We're normalizing some of the categories of information, and you can see when the computer sees something very different that it's never seen before, and how it just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. So what we've done strategically, and this is purely that dangling carrots and fixing things mantra. We built a tool inside of our automated code analysis tool that helps us. The code analysis tool helps us draw our life safety drawings, which take a lot of time. But then we found that nobody fills out what the IBC function of space on the room is. So we use machine learning to read the room, the size of the room, the door, and predict what the function of space is. And then now what's happening is through this automated tool, people are able to tag the data that we need as basically a category on a room that we can use for machine learning. So I'm proud to say that we've built a ton of tools. Matt Conway and our digital design team has built a lot of tools. This is a picture of our DLR Group Revit add-in. Those are all icons of different tools that we have, but they're all tools that focus on automating tasks that are challenging and time-consuming. And we keep a focus on creating clean data to centralize in our data warehouse so that we can leverage it for AI. So, navigating with our vision, how do we prioritize? ROI is a big thing. For me, with everything with design technology, if it's a design tech tool, I ask, does it improve efficiency? Does it enhance quality? And does it improve our ability to design? These are the first things that I ask. There's a whole bunch more depending on what the thing is, but those are the big three. Why I bring this up is my favorite way to figure out what to work on is the jar of rocks exercise. So, the analogy of how do you fill a jar of rocks? When you have big rocks, pebbles, and sand, you put the big rocks in, the pebbles, and then fill the cracks with sand. Figuring out what your big rocks are to work on, those three things are big metrics. But then when we have this overarching vision of what I'm trying to get to, something like, does it align with the vision? Does it get us over a hurdle or avoid a turtle? Become other metrics for me to look at and prioritize what to work on. So this is a screenshot of our design technology development team's roadmap. And so we tag everything by a now, new, or next. I've recently come to realize how much my job is similar to product management and software development. We're grooming what the overall work that needs to be done to change the tools that we have, and then we're developing those. And we're doing it with a priority that's getting us to a bigger vision. With this, we make sure that there's an even spread of improvement within all of our disciplines, because people can only handle so much change at one time. Something you may not have noticed when I talked about the design tech team is that it's built for each section to support itself. So I personally am rallying against the hatred of being a cog in the wheel. Everybody supports one another, and I think that's necessary to make big change. You need to support, you need capability, and you need value that is visible. And on that, we do a ton of data tracking to see where our opportunities lie. BIM Beats is one of those tools. We can see how much time people spend doing something. We can see where we're not implementing something. There's just lots of ways for us to really successfully look at what is happening across a large portfolio of projects. More specifically, we track this year to last year with a mindset of constant growth. And I just tried to show some non-specific things that you can't quite see what's in there, but really this mural board, we do exercises to see how we can track the counter commands of tools we build. So a simple example of that is we build a sheet tool, and we can look at the projects that use the sheet tool, and then we'll look at projects that use the sheet command and the make view command of Revit and compare their profitability. So what this does is creates that the carrot to dangle in front of a project manager of, use our stuff, you will be profitable. Now, you do have to be prepared that sometimes data will show that your stuff isn't good, and then you need to go about that in another way. I talked about embracing the island, and that's just a mentality. Doing something transformational, you cannot do it alone. We, as our group, we work hand in hand with designers. My team mirrors the disciplines for development of content standards and automation. We just come at it from the perspective of what can be done, and our design teams figure out what we would like to do and how we would like to do it. And from there, we work together. and we work out regionally to gain awareness, consensus, and buy-in. We work through our upper leadership to push downward. We report data of what we're seeing, and frankly, we just come at it from all angles because you have to work at it together, and it's from all things. So that's the whole nobody cares. You have to just assume they don't and come at them from all ways and prepare yourself for it, because change is not immediate. So the last bit I'll talk about graphically, I'm going to try to explain how I work. I focus on maximizing the data input so that once input something once, populate as many things as possible. Along the way, any of the challenges that we face or barriers to entry, we automate those away. And then what we do is we dangle carrots to get someone to contribute while saving themselves time. Or we might fix something behind the scenes that will trip us up. With that, though, you need a great team to plan and support throughout the entire project, and they need to be working together. And then you need your eyes in the sky, so to say. You need to monitor everything, and you need to look for issues to fix. You need to look for those growing plants that need nurturing. You need ways to prioritize to keep things moving along your roadmap. And really, it's that simple. Know where you're trying to go.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bill. Great presentation. So much important information. So right now we have about 110 attendees with us, which is on LinkedIn and YouTube, which is amazing. It's the highest number of attendees we've ever had for our AEC Tech Talks. And I think it speaks to the importance of this conversation. There are all these great tools and technologies and solutions out there, but at the end of the day, it's up to you on like how many of them we are using and implementing and really using in our daily workflow. So you both talked about challenge. So to our great audience, I wish there was a way I could add some of them, because there's this great conversation happening here on the side. So please feel free to post your questions in the chat box, and I can ask them here. But let's start. So you both talked about challenges, and then Bill, you are talking about this great, process and tool you're developing in-house. So how can we? And then Nirva, you mentioned X versus 5X. So the time and money that you have to spend on like really getting to learning about these tools and then implementing them. So how do you assess and evaluate how if you are going to use certain technology? And then Bill, in your case, how do you decide if it's something that you are developing in-house, or maybe it's a solution technology that is out there? And what is your discovery? Like, maybe we can start by Nirva and then Bill.
There's a separate conversation going between Stefan and Paul on the chat on their own. So
I know. Yeah, and next information that I actually wanted to say, Stefan, my good friend, he has this AEC AI Hub, which is a great resource for AI-powered technology. Check it out. And then Stefan, Paul, everyone, please post your questions here so we can ask them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is a great resource Stefan has, and really, when I mentioned that we have to collaboratively work, this is not just about one firm, and that is what he's doing, and great work of others that are doing, you and other platforms to bring all together. I think there's a conversation about change and people caring, what I guess something Bill mentioned. And I feel like both of them are very, very important. And it only makes sense when a person is really directly impacted with that change, with the outcomes that is making a difference in their life. So sometimes the tools are not giving enough outcomes for them to make the change. And it's very important to me to understand why they don't want that change. So it's been historically, when a big change happens, I always receive some things from the senior people saying, "Oh, can you wait till I retire to do all of those things?" So I think that we can't have 1% changers, but I did mention that we have tech allies, and those are key. It doesn't matter how good our design technology teams are, it's because they're not, we regularly have them go in and out projects to experience the decisions. Why are those people not accepting our workflow? Why are those people not using what we said you should use? I think it's very important to have the pulse of the firm, and it's different from my firm to your firm because our people are different. We can't just all agree that that is something good process, because all of our businesses are very different. How do we evaluate? And I don't think anyone has the key to that kingdom, but we really have to limit the spend of the time when we come to a point that we already looked at something like this and it doesn't work in our workflow, or we have to stop it and keep using what we have because of X and Y. And I feel like the communication and the camaraderie the company has together is the key to make sure that things do change and people will change their minds. We do profile our tech allies quite effectively, so that they are our change makers. Really, as much as we push, they have to validate that in their daily lives, in their daily projects, and the outcomes have to be significant. So it's also a very difficult industry to measure. You could say that, okay, we made profit because we use Revit in this way or that way, but there's so many factors for profitability that it is hard to explain that one tool or one ecosystem made that impact. The metrics is there, and certainly moving forward, the data sets and the data, all the AI stuff that we're trying to put out there to the machine learning will help, but still, it is an industry that's not as scientific as others are.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Nirva. Bill?
I'm not even sure where to start, because there's so many things to layer on. Many of the things that Nirva said, I totally agree with. We have the people that we try to work with. We call them champions. We make sure to have training at different levels for that sort of person. We really try to empower them and engage them in different ways, because it's the thing of we're a 1,500 person firm, and you have the laggards and the people that are way ahead, and the analogies of steering the ship stuff. But in reality, like, how do you keep, and it even relates to some of the chat here of like, how do you keep the change maker that is very interested in change or just wanting to fly and run ahead? And we're getting to some of these topics where they're really hard to learn, and they're so far out there. Like, to explain AI at a good level to understand it, it might take an hour presentation to get somebody like this much of a good knowledge that doesn't have it, where you can have a meaningful conversation. So there's how you engage that person without leaving everybody behind is just really the challenge of it. And the rest of the question I'm kind of forgetting, to be honest with you, because we went and I started reading the chat. What was
no
it?
problem. Bill, I was wondering when you decide that you are going to develop a solution in-house rather than using something that is available out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a constant cost thing, and we're like, I feel like every platform comes at us with some 6-figure renewal costs, or like the example I used to give, it was Unify like very early Unify, they were trying to figure out what their value was, and there was this slide deck that was all about how much time it saved us, and it ended up being like a third of the cost for Autodesk renewal. Like, it doesn't exist if Revit doesn't exist. You can't price in that way. And they've come way down, like it's gotten better, but that sort of thing in trying to figure out what their pricing is hard when you're a big firm. And so there's always this, watching that cost versus the cost it would take to build something. And I'm one that is like, I'll look to partner. I just want the thing. Like I throw out the idea. I don't care if I build all the tools to get there. I want that. Like that idea is what I want. And so it's whatever the best way to get there is the way I go about it. And in the middle of some of those diagrams, we partnered with a few other firms to pay Imagine It, who makes Clarity, which is like the big data tool for us for BIM data. They built in the Clarity Space programming module because it was a natural fit. They didn't have it and they wouldn't do it, but because a few of us also wanted it and it was part of that initial R&D request, it's like, yeah, I could build it myself or I could partner and pay a third and then get something that more people will use and it has a bigger impact. So it's just evaluate on cost every time and value and time that you have and skills you have.
I think one of the reasons for built in-house versus is dependency on the employees that actually built that product for you. And as they change careers and they move on, that becomes a big of a problem to support. But on the other hand, the same thing happens when a product is like eliminated from an ecosystem, or a startup doesn't survive and you've built some type of a ecosystem on that. So Stefan is asking, like, I gave the very simple FormIt examples because we're not very deep in it and it's not that effective. But I gave that example as something out of our control. We used it because, one of the reasons was part of our Autodesk subscription, like it's not free, but we've already paying for it, with a dozen other tools that we don't use. So why we had looked at the features at the recent 22-23 year mark and said, oh, this might be useful and we can be able to use it. So, and some SketchUp followers did use it. So Stefan is asking, that's what I was doing actually last week, looking at the number of hours we spend in explaining people that, okay, here's what SketchUp does, and which essentially the FormIt was designed to replace SketchUp. Again, it's a very simplistic example. And so we told them, here's the SketchUp things to do, and here's the FormIt things to do. Look, it's doing it, and it can talk to Revit, so that makes sense. And then did several training programs. So last week, I was counting the number of hours because, as I said, despite the fact that our software and licensing cost has skyrocketed over the last few years, but that still remains less of the impact it has of these changing and switching tools. And I think tool exhaustion and tool fatigue is one of the reasons of not wanting to change, because like I said, we're infringing on the business of architecture and design and learning and becoming a professional with expertise in this environment. So even if I do have a number, but then what? What do we do for the next tool that we're coming? Because we don't trust that. So in that email, Autodesk says it's moving its features from FormIt to Forma. That's the flavor of the current day, Forma. So yes, we are now telling people that, and they're going to keep it for the next couple of years. But who in their right mind would use a product that's dying? So the daily and I also think that AI strategy is, as much as the ecosystem is flooding with tools, it's about thinking a little differently. For the first time, I feel we need to design the problem we're solving and then get out there and find the right AI approach. So far, what I've seen is that everybody else, all the vendors know how to solve our problems. And they are bringing tools to say, okay, here it is. This is what we think you need. And an opportunity is given now with the AI setup for every firm to evaluate their business and their business model and what are the things that they think AI could impact. And I don't mean the Midjourneys or Veras's or whatever other 900 tools. Those are very, very important. But I think the higher importance is to say how it's impacting our business, what is it changing, and what is the methodologies that we're using that is what did not have before. And then go out there and get the right tool for the right approach.
Yeah, exactly. So based on that, Nirva, it's very interesting that on AEC+tech platform, I think I mentioned it to you before that our energy, so we have this 50 categories, and our energy modeling category is almost the most visited and most searched category. So while we think that energy modeling shouldn't be that complicated, there's like tools out there, people are still looking for a user-friendly, good energy modeling tool, and everyone is searching that. And at my last architecture job, we were always looking for that, testing different things, and then we came up with this system. So this is actually my next question for you. Have you developed like a system? I know evaluating ROI is very challenging, but like a system, like a list of questions or something that you have every time a new tool and technology is introduced to you. So you go back to that chart or list of questions, and then you evaluate the solutions based on those. So have you developed such a thing?
Are you describing a Pew matrix?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's largely what the 3 KPIs that I mentioned are. Like, those are the first 3. And then after that, it's comparing one to the other. It's adoption potential, cost is a consideration. Those do come in. If it's something that we're like open bidding, or like if it's an enterprise tool, I think you really have to use some of those to have like a true consensus and a panel to come together. Because like, let's say hypothetically we changed away from Revit, that is going to impact every person for so long it's not even funny. So you would have to go through that level of scrutiny to it. Where if it's something as simple as like, hey, we're gonna start using Twinmotion more, you don't even have to impact everybody. So it's a magnitude thing and how you have to do it. And also, I don't really care. So I'm just going to try to tell people what my opinion of what you should use is versus what we are using. So if it's a big thing, yes, and a small thing, not so much.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that there is a very good question about the ability of different sizes of firms, on implementing technology, and it is a very different focus and a very different strategy. In one hand, I think in all size situations, there's pros and cons. There's a challenge driving thousands of people, a firm, and change implemented in that ecosystem. And there's a challenge on the smaller end, different kinds of challenges. But I think the democratization of tools and has made it so much in favor of the smaller companies. But you do have to have the right people. I feel that the size will be irrelevant if you have the right people with the right mindset, and you have a firm that is committed on the senior level to support that. I think I read somewhere that before, I think it used to be like technology had to be a little bit not obvious, but now it's exactly the reverse. We are promoting technology front and center, saying that, we are trying to make that as a distinguishing factor. But the small firm can use that as much as the bigger firm can do, something that was not really possible a decade ago.
Yeah, for sure. And small firms are building really like most important parts of our towns, like all these houses, everything around us. Not everything, but very important buildings. So it's important that they use these great tools to improve their efficiency. So I apologize that I didn't really address many of the great questions that were posted here. We have a great conversation going on simultaneously here. Please feel free to check it out later. It's there on our LinkedIn page in the comment section. We are almost out of time. Yes, you're actually over time, 1 minute. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks to our 2 wonderful panelists. Thanks to our audience. This was a great conversation, very important. We hope to continue it in the near future. So don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This video is recorded and you can watch it later. Thanks again and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Niknaz, and thank you for all who participated on the chat. Terrific discussion.